Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're doing the first autumn season 1 roundup today. This isn't the final and official GazWeatherViz.com autumn forecast. I'll be doing that in August, but it's sort of the first salvo, if you like, in the lead up to that autumn forecast in autumn. We're going to get seasonal models together that we can. We're not using all the seasonal models this month. There are models that we've got to leave out because they don't extend far enough to cover the autumn. So we're not using all the seasonal models, but what seasonal models we have got, we're going to get them all together and see what they're showing. Now, before I go on the video, I'll talk about the advertising. There's keyword ads on all our pages at GazWeatherViz.com. They're green words. If you roll your cursor over those words, they'll display ads. If you click through the words, though, then you're supporting GazWeatherViz.com. And thank you very much for doing that. Also want to mention the video ad sitting just above this weather video here at GazWeatherViz.com. If you hit play on that ad, don't necessarily have to watch it, just click play. Again, you'll be supporting GazWeatherViz.com by doing that. And again, thank you very much for doing it. So, we're going to start off, as I say, with the seasonal models. In fact, we've used seasonal models all the way through, but we're going to start off with the UK Met Office. And what we're going to look at first of all is the ensemble mean anomaly for sea level pressure. So, this is pressure in the air, basically. And we're seeing a rather large area of high pressure there. Anomalous area of high pressure sitting around the British Isles for the 3-monthly period, September to November. So that would imply a lot of settled weather through the course of the autumn, possibly quite cold underneath that high pressure, especially once we get later on into the autumn. But yeah, that's a pretty strong signal there from the UK Met Office model that we'll be seeing above average pressure, certainly through the course of the autumn. In terms of temperature, the anomaly, ensemble mean anomaly for the autumn is actually a bit colder than average. These green colours are a bit below the average. The UK Met Office model has been going through for colder than average temperatures throughout 2013. This seasonal model has been doing this for a long time now, and I have to say it's been pulling it off because month after month after month the anomalies have been coming in a little bit below the average. In the case of March, well below the average, and it's still going for it through the autumn. It's still going for temperature anomalies to be below average. Quite a cold, chilly sort of autumn is right. Probably not surprised with that pressure distribution because particularly later on in the autumn, later October into November, you would get a lot of frost and fog with that high pressure setup. But perhaps a little bit more surprising is that the model is also going for slightly above average precipitation. Not a really wet autumn by any means, not in the colours in terms of the precipitation anomaly, but nevertheless the green colours here are indicating that it would be a little bit wetter than the average through the course of the autumn. I'm not quite sure how that tallies up, to be honest, with the pressure distribution. I would have expected to see a very dry autumn with that high pressure dominating. But that's what the model's going for. It's going for above average precipitation or slightly above average precipitation through the autumn and colder than average temperatures with a consistent signal for high pressure. So that's quite a seasonable sort of anomaly to start us off with the UK Met Office model. Moving on to the next model, this is the Brazilian model. Now we can't look at the whole of autumn with this, but we can look at August, September, October. So we're looking at like the late summer and through the first and middle parts of the autumn. These are 500 millibar heights. A little bit different with this model in terms of the 500 millibar heights. It catches us forecasters out a little bit, this one, because on normal 500 millibar heights, below average heights would be blue, above average heights would be red and orange. Well, this is a bit different. Below average heights on this 500 millibar map are actually the orange and pink colours. So this area here is a big area of anomalously below average heights. And of course the green and blue areas will be above average heights, which we see up here. So what the model is predicting through certainly August to October is quite a bit of high pressure at the northern latitudes, stretching across the polar field from the north of Scandinavia right way through to Greenland. Quite a large area of anomalously above average heights up there, and a big area of below average heights sitting around and to the east of the British Isles. So if I mark that with low, you can't really see it, but that is a large area of below average heights sitting just over and to the east of the British Isles. That will be bringing in a lot of northerly and easterly winds through the course of late summer, early autumn. So you would expect temperatures to be below average with that, and indeed the model is going for cooler or colder than average late summer and early to mid-autumn. So this is the temperature anomaly for August to October, and yes, we are seeing quite a cold temperature anomaly there for the British Isles. Hardly surprising, because winds would be very often coming from the north and the east around that big trough sitting just to the east of the British Isles. So that's another model that's going for quite a chilly autumn. The precipitation, well, not quite so much to look at with this. As is often the case with precipitation, we see that we're near normal, the signal is not as strong for precipitation, but of course with that anomalously large area of below average height sitting around and to the east of the country, you would expect regularly to be getting rain coming in from the north and the east. So it could be quite a wet signal actually, that, particularly if you was to get a southerly tracking jet stream coming through the Atlantic. If you was to get a jet stream running through here, taking low pressure in off the Atlantic and setting it up around there, that could be quite a wet signal through the course of the autumn, but certainly the signal for temperature is quite strong. Next model we're going to look at is the CFS version 2 model. Not quite sure why it's CFS version 2, because it's the only CFS model, seasonal model going from the CFS range at the moment. The CFS version 1 has been pensioned off, was pensioned off last year. Looking at the 700 millibar heights for September to October, September to November isn't particularly useful, because all you get is large areas of white with nothing much going on. So we're going to break this down into monthly periods. We're going to start off with September. Again, this is similar to the 500 millibar height idea. It's just a very slightly different area in the atmosphere, but this is more of a classic height anomaly chart, in that the yellow areas and orange areas are above average heights, whereas the blue areas are below average heights. So what we're seeing for September is a large area of above average heights up to the north and to the northwest of the British Isles. So potentially very similar actually, and stretching over here to the north of Scandinavia. So potentially there it's very similar to what we saw with the Brazilian model. What we don't have is the big trough of below average heights. We don't have the trough there to the east and around the British Isles. We've got an area of white, but my suspicion is that actually this would be filled up with low pressure, and that we'd see blocking to the northwest, low pressure underneath. That would be potentially quite a cool and wet signal for September. For October, we've got a big area of below average height sitting just around the British Isles, a big area below average heights there, low pressure. High pressure is somewhere to the north of Iceland. So again, that's quite a cool sort of signal for October, and potentially unsettled as well, very unsettled potentially, with that area of below average heights around the British Isles. And then for November, well again, the idea is that we're still in a quite a cool pattern, bit different this time. We've got heights sitting to the north and the west of the British Isles, so again sitting somewhere around there, and again you would expect low pressure. It doesn't really show it that well, but you would expect low pressure to be there. So again, potentially for November, that is quite a cool signal. So I think the CFS model is very close to quite a cold and unsettled sort of autumn pattern. So we've had 3 models so far. All 3 models do appear to be going for quite a cool autumn. Bit of a disagreement about the precipitation and the precise setup that causes it, but the signal for temperature quite strong. It looks quite cold. Having a look at the Beijing, JAMSTEC IOD model, and for autumn it's a very similar idea, in that the model is going for a colder than average autumn or a cooler than average autumn here. These are temperature anomalies, and yes, northern Western Europe is looking really quite cold with that temperature anomaly. It's below average colder than average autumn being signalled there from Jamstec IOD. Precipitation, this is a little bit different now. They've changed the colour scheme. Remember, it used to be just like a salmon pink colour scheme. Now they've changed it to a sandy brown for drier than average, and greens for wetter than average. So, but this is a little bit easier to use actually. That the last colour scheme is quite difficult. We're seeing a drier than average signal there around the British Isles, wetter than average up to the north. So again, this is sort of the idea that we've got high pressure around the British Isles somewhere, here. We've got high pressure dominating, potentially keeping it quite cold, particularly as you get on later on into the autumn. You will get it cold, getting colder and colder and colder into that high pressure. So by November, potentially have got quite a cold sort of setup. And finally, having a look at the Beijing Climate Centre, these are 500 millibar heights for the autumn. And again, it's the same sort of idea, but sort of repeating patterns with this, that we've got high pressure sitting somewhere around British Isles, a big area of above average heights at 500 millibars. Again, this is very classic 500 millibar heights, only with the orange areas above average, blue areas below average. Yeah, we've got below average heights up to the north, around Greenland. So that's where the low pressure is. The high pressure is around the British Isles. But perhaps a little bit different with this is that it's going for a warmer than average autumn. Temperatures generally coming out above the seasonal average for September, October and November. But the caveat with that is, look how cold it is across much of the continent. Much of Europe is below average here. Really stretching from the west, actually, right way through towards Russia. So we're very much on the edge of any cold, of the cold temperature. We're very much on the edge of it, and I'm not really convinced that that warm area is quite right. I think with that 500 millibar distribution, we would be looking at quite a coldish sort of autumn. And precipitation anomalies through the autumn, well, not surprisingly, with that 500 millibar height anomaly, it is dry there, dry for much of the British Isles, and dry for much of Central Europe as well. So that's season models we can use for this month. Very interesting they are too, and there's a very strong signal there that we're going to be seeing quite a lot of anticyclonic influences again. So I'm not sure we're seeing a signal particularly for a wet autumn, although the Brazilian model in particular is really quite unsettled. But yeah, the signal is for anticyclonic conditions generally, and for a colder than average autumn, a very strong signal, despite the Beijing Climate Centre being a little bit different. All the other models are going for a colder than average autumn, so you have to say it's a very strong signal this far out in June. Have all the season models, bar one, going for a colder than average autumn. Very strong signal. Very unusual to see it that strong this far away from the season. But precipitation, not so easy, but of course with high pressure tending to dominate above average heights, it would tend to favour drier than average conditions. So a very strong signal there for a colder than average autumn, not so strong for precipitation. Finally, very finally, I want to give you a sneak peek at what the Jamstec IOD model is going for the winter. The winter charts have just appeared this month on the Jamstec IOD model, and this is the temperature anomaly for the winter. Look at that. Really cold winter being signalled there by the Jamstec IOD model. Much of Europe is well and truly in the freezer. The peak of the cold, though, is probably around northern and western Europe. Now, I think the Jamstec IOD model does have a tendency at times to turn it colder than it ends up at the extended range, and this is as far out as the model is going. It's just literally this month started showing December, January, February 2013, 2014. I think the model does have a bit of a tendency at the extended range to show things getting colder than they end up at. Then as it gets closer and closer, it sort of corrects itself. But nevertheless, that's a very strong signal for a colder than average autumn and for a colder than average winter. And if it's anywhere near right, we really are going to be in the freezer for 2013, 2014. And I've been keeping a close eye on the CFS model as well. That very often, for such an extended range, has got a very strong signal for a really cold winter. So already I'm beginning to get concerned. Of course, I've done the NAO forecast, the North Atlantic Oscillation forecast, which signals a negative NAO. and already I'm starting to get concerned about this winter. I've got to be really honest about this. I think we could be looking at a really cold winter. It's early days, of course, and let's worry about it when we get to September, but I'm concerned about it already. But getting back to the autumn, and yeah, it looks like we're going to be in for a cooler or colder than average autumn. Not a particularly clear signal for precipitation, but if you assume that we're going to have a lot of anticyclonic influences, precipitation probably coming out a little bit drier than the average. So that's how it's looking this month. We'll do it all again next month, and we'll have more season models to add to it. We'll have the Russian model, we'll have the JMA model, have the Korean model, so we'll be able to start adding more models to this, see what they're going for through the autumn. We'll do that in July. But that's it. But I hope you found it interesting and informative as ever. Remember, you can comment on the video in the comment box, and that's it for now. Thanks for watching.